Ernie Sharman was born in Ultimo, Sydney in 1923, the third child of Richard and Agnes Sharman. In this photo, Ernie is with his sister Dorothy, his younger brother George, and a neighbourhood friend, Henry, on the end. Ernie lived at Queenscliff in the early years, attending Harbord Public School before the family moved to Balmain, where he spent the remainder of his childhood. The family lived on the waterfront in Balmain in a house that decades later in the 1970s would be featured as House of the Week in the Australian Women's Weekly. From rowing his father to work at Cockatoo Island to helping build a family boat, to harbour racing later in life, Ernie has always had an interest in boats and an affinity with the water. And why wouldn't you build a boat when your backyard meets the harbour? Ernie's mother and father also bought land in Pittwater where the family built a boathouse. This is Ernie with his sister Dorothy. Ernie's love of wearing short shorts began early in life. On turning 18, Ernie's first choice was to enlist with the Navy, having been in the Sea Scouts and Junior Naval Peacetime Reserves. However, after failing a colourblind test, he enlisted in the Army after the Air Force also rejected him due to his colourblindness. He trained in heavy artillery and was eventually shipped to New Guinea, where he served at Morotai. Next, he was shipped to Balikpapan on the island of Borneo to secure the oil depots and refinery. After victory in the Pacific, Ernie was shipped to the Spice Islands and landed at Ambon to evacuate the Australian POWs and in turn the Japanese garrison. Ernie was also one of the guards of the POW war trials. Ernie was discharged in May 1946. By day, he was prawn fishing in Sydney Harbour and later working on cranes at Brightwell's Transport. But by night, he transformed into a formidable ballroom dancing instructor. He cut a dashing figure and hotly denied any rumours that his look was based on the Belgian comic book character Tintin. He met a girl called Betty, shy print room attendant by day, but also a mighty ballroom dancer by night. Their lives revolved around the dances in the city and at Petersham Town Hall with good friends Reg and Nita. And in September 1949, Ernie and Betty were married. Betty's sister Shirley was her matron of honour. For those of you who have not yet met Shirley, she lives here in Port Macquarie, and she is here today. She is a mad bridge player, and she will also celebrate her 90th birthday next month. Ernie and Betty honeymooned at Port Macquarie, and 52 years later, those memories would inform their decision on where to retire. Life was good in those post-war years. Even with his fair skin and lack of sun protection, Ernie hit the beach with style and regularity, ably accompanied by Betty. There are almost no photos from this era where they and their immediate family are wearing anything but their swimmers. This custom was to continue for many, many years. Parenthood kicked off with the arrival of Sandra in 1959. She was no trouble at all, Betty and Ernie would say, although efforts to get her to sleep involved driving Sandra around and around the streets of Kingsgrove at night and finally cradling her for hours. This cradling process took so long that Ernie would go to the extent of securing her with safety pins to the front of his jumper, just in case he fell asleep first with Sandra in his arms. Despite this, Jane was born 2.5 years later. Family life revolved around their home at Kingsgrove and their many and varied pets. Ernie became a proud member of Strathfield Golf Club and had a handicap of 13. Keen on golf though he was, the opportunity to sail in Saturday yacht races around Middle Harbour in a Class 6 yacht called the Bloke, owned by a friend, proved too tempting. Golf was given away for some years as Ernie spent Saturday afternoons thoroughly enjoying being back on the harbour racing. But for a last-minute broken mast, he came very close to competing in a Sydney to Hobart one year. Ernie and Betty resumed ballroom dancing with a group of friends in the 1980s and spent many wonderful Saturday nights out dancing, most on the floor. They also attended Back to Balmain Day, an annual event now in its 20th year, where they joined with new residents and old neighbours and revisited Ernie's family home at 72 Campbell Street. Ernie has given away 3 brides. His niece Brenda, who is here today, and his 2 daughters, Sandra and Jane. He is a beloved grandpa to Jay, Mia and Miranda, who are also here today. Ernie and Betty relocated to Port Macquarie in March 2002. They left behind good friends, family, dancing and golf. But Ernie and Betty embraced this new chapter of their lives. The village slogan is "For the not-so-retiring", although Ernie has told me that the residents' motto is "What happens in the village stays in the village". Although he's retired his golf clubs and dancing shoes, Ernie has taken up bridge, enjoying the occasional win, has volunteered at the Hibbard Boatyard and helped edit the village newsletter in those early years. Sandra and Jane are also very happy with Ernie and Betty's choice of Port Macquarie as a retirement destination, as it has given them many wonderful holidays over the years. And it's our pleasure to be here today to help celebrate Ernie's 90th birthday. Happy birthday, Ernie.